In the icy winter of 1941, when the cutting wind of the Eastern Front whispered the secrets of war, a formidable force emerged from the shadows, the 3rd Panzer Division Totenkopf of the Waffen-SS. Wrapped in a dark cloak, these warriors bore the skull as a symbol of their indomitable loyalty, forged in the flames of ideology and the steel of battle. From their early days, the Totenkopf stood as an elite among elites, destined to leave an indelible mark in history as the very personification of ferocity and devotion to duty. Under the relentless leadership of Obergruppenführer Theodor Eicke, the Totenkopf rose in this grim setting, where decisiveness was the law. Join us as we explore the epic saga of the Totenkopf division, where honor was called and victory was won through fierce, relentless struggle. The Totenkopf skull, emblem of strength and darkness. If there is a symbol that resonates in global consciousness, it is undoubtedly the Totenkopf, the sinister and grinning skull that stood as the emblem of the SS. To find the origin of this symbol, we have to go back to 1740, when a skull was used to adorn the catafalque of King Frederick William I of Prussia. This skull was presented, as is customary in funerary matters, without the lower jaw, tilted to its right, and with 2 crossed bones all embroidered in silver on black velvet. In his memory, in 1741, the 5th Regiment of Hussars was created, called the Black Hussars. This unit was formed with squadrons of the 1st Preußisches Husaren Regiment and the 2nd Lieb Husaren Regiment, 2 elite units of the Prussian cavalry. Since then, the skull had great prominence. In the Great War, the Totenkopf was adopted by stormtrooper units, flamethrowers, and even some aviators who, coming from cavalry units, were fond of the canine skulls. Displaying it was like telling everyone that one came from a special unit. The birth of the Totenkopf division. From the shadowy curtain of 1934 emerged the bastions of cruelty in German lands, where the guards of the concentration camps, like iron sentinels of despair, entrusted themselves to regiments of indomitable power. Dachau, guarded with relentless determination by the 1st Regiment Oberbayern, Oranienburg-Sachsenhausen, under the yoke of the 2nd Regiment Brandenburgo, Buchenwald, witness to the relentless presence of the 3rd Regiment Thüringen, and Mauthausen, prostrated under the domain of the 4th Regiment Ostmark. Under the unyielding rule of Obergruppenführer Theodor Eicke, these regiments wove a dark tapestry of oppression, merging into the sinister symphony of the Totenkopfverbände. At the onset of the Second World War, the success of the sister formations of the Totenkopf, such as the Leibstandarte Regiment and the 3 Standarten divisions of the Verfügungstruppe, led the Führer to approve Himmler's recommendation to create 3 divisions of the Waffen-SS in October of 1939. On the 1st of November, this unit took root as the 3rd Panzer Division Totenkopf of the SS. At the head of this division was Obergruppenführer Theodor Eicke, already known for his fervent National Socialism and the brutality he exercised in the concentration camps. Eicke's moral principles became ingrained in the Totenkopf division, which quickly stood out for its fanaticism and loyalty to the party. These units were considered of inferior quality compared to other SS combat units and were used in surveillance and guard operations. Facing the storm, the beginnings of the Totenkopf in battle. After its creation, the Totenkopf joined the Second Army under the command of Generaloberst Maximilian von Weichs. At the beginning of the Second World War, in September of 1939, during the Poland campaign, it was sent to Poland to finish off the last remnants of Polish resistance. In March of 1940, the division was transferred to the 15th Panzer Corps, led by Generaloberst Hermann Hoth. During the offensive in the West, which included attacks on the Netherlands and France on the 10th of May of 1940, the Totenkopf remained in reserve. A week later, on the 16th of May, the division was launched into combat in Belgium, suffering severe casualties due to its fanaticism in the fight. A week after this battle, elements of this division under the command of SS Obersturmführer Fritz Knöchlein executed 97 of the 99 British officers of the Royal Norfolk Regiment who had surrendered. On the 19th of May, the Totenkopf took on tasks in Le Château and Cambrai. Throughout the campaign in France, the division participated in intense battles in various regions of the West, such as Le Château, Cambrai, Arras, Dunkirk, Seine, Loire, Lyon, and Charente. Northeast of Cambrai, the Totenkopf captured 16,000 French prisoners. However, advancing towards the coast, they faced strong Anglo-French resistance that they could barely contain, reaching the brink of panic. They managed to stop the enemy tanks only by using artillery pieces and were saved by the intervention of Luftwaffe dive bombers. Then, they suffered considerable losses during the capture of the La Bassée Canal. When France finally surrendered, the division was near the Spanish border, where it remained until April of 1941. The losses during the Battle of France were significant, and to compensate, elements from regular Waffen-SS units were transferred instead of the concentration camp guard battalions. To make up for their losses, the Totenkopf had to requisition local vehicles and other French materials. In April of 1941, the division received orders to join Field Marshal General Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb's Army Group North as they headed east towards Leningrad. Tasked with breaking the formidable Stalin line, the 3rd SS Totenkopf Division fought intense battles in Lithuania and Latvia. By July, their relentless advance had shattered the defenses, allowing them to gradually approach their final objective, Leningrad. As the division advanced beyond Imyansk, their determination was tested by a series of fierce engagements from the 31st of July to the 25th of August. Totenkopf found itself in brutal combat near Leningrad, where both sides fought with unwavering determination. Day after day, the soldiers of Totenkopf advanced, overcoming enemy resistance, navigating treacherous urban environments, and enduring harsh conditions. The battle for Leningrad became a grueling test of their mettle as they struggled to break Soviet defenses and capture key objectives. During the autumn and winter of 1941, the Soviets launched multiple operations against the German lines in the northern sector of the front. One of these operations resulted in the division being encircled near Demyansk, creating the Demyansk Pocket. Totenkopf suffered heavy losses in these battles and was renamed Kampfgruppe 100CA due to its reduced size. The division fought fiercely to defend the pocket, with SS Hauptsturmführer Erwin Mayadres leading a small group of soldiers in the defense of the strategic town of Biakawo against repeated enemy attempts to capture it. Mayadres personally destroyed several enemy tanks in his Stu-G3 and was awarded the Iron Cross for his actions. In April of 1942, the division broke the encirclement and reached friendly territory in Demyansk. About 80% of the division's soldiers were either killed, wounded, or declared missing in action. The remaining troops were withdrawn from the front in late October of 1942 and sent to France for re-equipment. In November of 1942, the division participated in Operation Anton, the capture of Vichy, France, with the addition of a tank battalion, and was renamed the 3rd SS Panzer Grenadier Division Totenkopf. It remained in France until February of 1943, when its former commander Theodor Eicke resumed control. In early February of 1943, the Totenkopf Division was moved to the Eastern Front as part of Erich von Manstein's Army Group South. They took part in the Third Battle of Kharkov, where their commander Theodor Eicke was killed when his transport plane was shot down at the front line. The division was immediately sent to secure the crash site and buried him with military honors, with Priest Hermann taking over as the new commander. Later, Totenkopf, as part of the SS Panzer Corps, joined Operation Citadel, the offensive to reduce the Kursk salient. They received a company of heavy Tiger I tanks and advanced alongside the Leibstandarte, encountering Soviet resistance. Despite this, on the 5th of July of 1943, the attack began with Totenkopf covering the left flank of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. They crossed the Seim River and aimed to reach Prokhorovka. However, the attack slowed due to Soviet resistance, particularly on Hill 226. Despite this setback, the division continued to advance, and elements of the division crossed the Seim River on the 11th of July. Reinforcements arrived to secure the precarious position, and the division expanded the bridgehead. They faced strong Soviet opposition but managed to hold their ground. On the 12th of July, the Soviets launched a major counterattack, and Totenkopf forces, backed by their Tigers Company, engaged in intense combat that halted the assault but caused significant losses. Although the 2nd SS Panzer Corps had repelled the Soviet counteroffensive, it was exhausted and unable to launch further attacks. The 24th Panzer Reserve Corps did not receive authorization from the Führer, and on the 14th of July, Hitler cancelled the operation. The Battle of Kursk had ended for the Germans. The Totenkopf Division, along with Das Reich, was assigned to the reorganized 6th Army under General der Infanterie Karl Adolf Hollert. Their objective was to eliminate the Soviet bridgehead over the Mius River. Over several weeks, Totenkopf faced intense fighting, marked by notable brutality, especially during the battles for Hill 213 and Stepanova. However, the division suffered significant losses, exceeding those experienced during Operation Citadel. When the Soviet bridgehead was finally eliminated, the division lost 1,500 soldiers, and its tank regiment was reduced to 20 tanks. Subsequently, Totenkopf was moved back to Kharkov to participate in battles against Operation Rumyantsev and prevent the Soviet capture of the city. Although the divisions managed to halt the offensive and inflict heavy casualties, the Soviets encircled them, leading to the abandonment of the city on the 23rd of August. In early September, Totenkopf arrived at the Dnieper River, where they faced the 5th Guards Tank Army, which had crossed at Kremenchuk and posed a threat to break the Dnieper line. Totenkopf was deployed to counter the bridgehead, and in October of 1943 the division was reformed as the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf. The Panzer Regiment received an upgrade, and the 2 Panzer Grenadier Regiments were honored with the titles Theodor Eicke and Totenkopf after holding the Kremenchuk bridgehead. Over several months, the Soviets launched a successful breakout attempt, pushing Totenkopf and other Axis divisions back towards the Romanian border. In November, Totenkopf participated in intense defensive battles against Red Army attacks near the crucial city of Kryvyi Rog, west of the Dnieper River. In January of 1944, Totenkopf engaged in fierce defensive fighting near Kryvyi Rog, preventing a Soviet advance. In February, the division was sent to assist in the efforts to rescue German troops trapped in the Cherkasy pocket. They attacked towards Korsun and successfully linked up with the encircled forces after a fierce battle near Kirovograd. In March, Totenkopf withdrew behind the Bug River and established new defensive positions, retreating alongside the Panzer Grenadier Division Grossdeutschland. They withdrew to the Dniester near Iasi on the Romanian border in April. Totenkopf rested near Targu Frumos in Romania, receiving replacements and new equipment. They returned to action as Soviet attacks intensified in a battle near Iasi. In July, Totenkopf joined the 1st Panzer Corps of SS Obergruppenführer Otto Giller near Grodno, Poland, to defend the approaches to Warsaw. They arrived at the Warsaw Front at the end of July of 1944. During the Warsaw Uprising by the Polish Home Army, Totenkopf guarded the front lines and repelled Soviet probing attacks in mid-August near Mordlin. Along with the 5th SS Panzer Division Viking and the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, Totenkopf decisively defeated the 3rd Soviet Tank Corps. Their effective use of terrain and superior optics allowed them to outperform the Soviet tanks. These divisions played a crucial role in defending the Vistula Line and establishing the Vistula Army Group. In December of 1944, the 4th SS Panzer Corps was ordered to relieve the trapped 9th SS Mountain Corps in Budapest. They launched Operation Conrad, with Conrad I being the first attack on New Year's Day of 1945. Despite initial victories, strong Soviet opposition hindered their progress. After the failure of Operation Conrad, Totenkopf and the 5th SS Panzer Division Viking launched Operation Conrad II, aiming to reach the city center. They made significant advances but were ordered to withdraw as part of a ruse. Operation Conrad III sought to encircle the Soviet units but failed to achieve its objective. The 9th SS Mountain Corps finally surrendered in mid-February. The division withdrew westward, participating in the retreat from Budapest to the area near Lake Balaton. They provided flank support during Operation Spring Awakening, but faced heavy fighting as the offensive stalled. The Soviet Vienna offensive encircled Totenkopf and Viking. To avoid a complete encirclement, the 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen fought to keep the escape route open while Gill's corps escaped. However, subsequent Soviet attacks pushed the 4th SS Panzer Corps back towards Vienna, losing contact with neighboring divisions and abandoning organized defense. The remnants of Totenkopf conducted a fighting retreat towards Czechoslovakia and surrendered to American forces in early May. They were then handed over to the Soviets, and many Totenkopf soldiers perished in Soviet gulags. After the war, the 3rd SS Totenkopf Division was disbanded, and many of its members were captured by Allied forces as prisoners of war. The 3rd SS Totenkopf division was commanded by formidable leaders, brave strategists who guided their troops with firmness on the most challenging battlefields. From their early days to the last conflict, these commanders, figures in the shadows of history, left a significant mark on the narrative of Totenkopf. The relentless Obergruppenführer and founder of terror in concentration camps. In the fields of Hampont, under the mantle of the German Empire, Theodor Eicke was born on the 17th of October of 1892, the youngest among 11 children of a valiant station master. His youth was marked by the Iron Cross Second Class, a hero of the First World War. After years as a regiment paymaster and decorated warrior, Eicke embarked on a path of challenges. From the classrooms of a technical school to his role as a peacekeeper, his destiny intertwined with history. He embraced bravery, defying the Weimar Republic until finding his place in the ranks of IG Farben, where he led internal security with skill in Ludwigshafen. In the mists of December of 1928, Eicke made his mark by joining the National Socialist Party and the SA. However, his fate took a new turn in August of 1930, when he left the SA to join the SS. In rapid ascension on the 15th of October of 1931, Heinrich Himmler elevated him to the rank of SS Standartenführer, marking his path in politics and gaining the attention of the Reichsführer of the SS. His political fervor led to his dismissal from IG Farben in 1932, accused of preparing bomb attacks against political opponents. Condemned in July of 1932 to 2 years in prison, the intervention of Justice Minister Franz Gürtner granted him protection, allowing him to escape the sentence. Sheltered in Italy by order of Himmler, he ascended to SS Oberführer in fascist Italy of Mussolini on the 21st of October of 1932. With the rise of National Socialism to power in March of 1933, Eicke returned to Germany. Appointed by Himmler as commander of the Dachau concentration camp on the 26th of June of that same year, he took the reins after complaints and criminal charges against the first commander. In a camp that already housed about 2,000 detainees, Eicke requested and obtained the creation of the SS Guard units, a permanent unit subordinate only to him. Theodor Eicke quickly reorganized the foundations of the Dachau concentration camp system, establishing a model that would be replicated throughout Germany. Imposing strict discipline, total obedience, and severe disciplinary regulations, he introduced the iconic blue and white striped uniform, a symbol that would come to represent concentration camps across Europe. The Guardians of the Dark Realm wore uniforms adorned with the sinister Death's Head emblem on their collars, reflecting the relentless coldness emanating from their leader, Theodor Eicke. His aversion to weakness marked his men, with him being known for his unwavering firmness. Eicke's anti-Semitism and anti-communism, along with his demand for total obedience, earned the favor of Heinrich Himmler, who promoted him to Brigadeführer on the 30th of January of 1934. On the dark night of the 30th of June of 1934, the Night of the Long Knives, Eicke and his SS comrades carried out executions and arrests of SA leaders. It is said that Eicke in a cold cell placed a pistol on Ernst Röhm's table, executing him along with his aide when he refused to commit suicide on the 1st of July of 1934. His unwavering loyalty did not go unnoticed, and on the 4th of July of 1934, Himmler officially appointed him inspector of concentration camps, promoting him to Gruppenführer on the 11th of July of 1934. In his new role, Eicke undertook a massive reorganization of the camps in 1935, consolidating them under the official designation of SS Totenkopfverbände on the 29th of March of 1936, with Eicke as commander. Smaller camps were replaced by imposing facilities such as Sachsenhausen, Buchenwald, Mauthausen, Flossenburg and Ravensbrück until 1939. The destiny of Theodor Eicke, inextricably intertwined with the horrors of the Second World War, found its epilogue in shocking circumstances. As the war inexorably leaned towards the inevitable collapse of the Third Reich, Eicke continued to lead the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf with fervor. However, the tide of war began to turn against him. In July of 1943, during the Battle of Kursk, Eicke was in command of his division, facing fierce Soviet resistance. The battle, the largest tank confrontation in history, represented a critical turning point on the Eastern Front. The Totenkopf fought valiantly, but the losses and tactical challenges eroded the division's strength and morale. On the 16th of July of 1943, in the heat of battle, Eicke was mortally wounded when his transport plane was shot down on the front line. The ferocity of the conflict showed no mercy for the concentration camp. Inspector turned military commander. His life came to an end in the same theatre of operations where he had deployed his fanaticism and brutality on the camps and battlefields. Eicke's death left a void in the leadership of the Totenkopf, but his legacy, imbued with National Socialist ideology and cruelty, persisted in the dark annals of history. Although his figure disappeared physically, the shadow of his actions and impact on concentration camps and the war itself endured until the conflict's last breath. Matthias Kleinheisterkamp, the SS veteran, and his controversial legacy as Obergruppenführer. Matthias Kleinheisterkamp, a man marked by the brutality of the First World War, was forged on the western and eastern battlefields, where his bravery earned him the distinction of both classes of the Iron Cross and a Silver Wound badge. His loyalty to the military ranks did not fade with the end of the conflict, as he joined the Freikorps, a paramilitary group, and later served in the Reichswehr. In November of 1933, Kleinheisterkamp joined the ranks of the Allgemeine SS, marking the beginning of a new phase in his military career. His membership number, 132,299, testifies to his commitment to the cause. His transfer to the Verfügungstruppe in April of 1935 led him to the SS training school, where he played the crucial role of infantry instructor. However, his path was not without challenges. In June of 1938, Kleinheisterkamp faced serious legal and disciplinary issues that hindered his ascent. Reprimanded by the main office of the SS court, he was put on leave until August of 1938. Despite these setbacks, he returned to active service and was assigned to the Standarte Deutschland, which would later transform into the feared SS Division Das Reich. On the 20th of April of 1937, Kleinheisterkamp crossed another threshold by joining the National Socialist Party with membership number 4,158,238. His career, marked by ups and downs, reflected the complexity of internal intrigues and the regime's relentless demands. With the SS Totenkopf division, Kleinheisterkamp stood out in the invasion of Poland, leading the Kleinheisterkamp group and playing a crucial role in the evacuation of German citizens and diplomatic personnel from Warsaw. His strategic skill was evident in this operation. Subsequently, his trajectory led him to new responsibilities, first in the Führungshauptamt and then to the Das Reich division. Unfortunately, the end of Matthias Kleinheisterkamp was tragic, as he was captured by Soviet forces and decided to end his own life a day later in captivity. Posthumously, Kleinheisterkamp was awarded the Oak Leaves for his Knight's Cross. Georg Kepler, the architect of SS expansion and his relentless path as Obergruppenführer. Georg Kepler lived in a complicated era and participated in various war situations. From his beginnings in the army in 1913 to his service in the First World War, he showed his dedication to military service. After working as a police officer, he joined the paramilitary forces of the National Socialist Party in 1935. He quickly rose through the ranks, leading battalions and receiving recognitions. In 1938, he commanded the Der Führer Regiment and participated in important campaigns such as the invasion of France and Operation Barbarossa. His outstanding performance earned him the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross in 1940. In 1941, he assumed the leadership of the SS Totenkopf division and later commanded other divisions. After serving in administrative roles in the Waffen-SS, he returned to the battlefield in 1944 during the Battle of Normandy and later on the Eastern Front until 1945. After the war, he was captured and released in 1948. His legacy as a versatile and experienced military leader endured until his death in 1966. Hermann Priess, the silent strategist of the SS. Hermann Priess, born in 1901, had his first military experiences by joining the military service in the German army in 1919 during the period of the German Empire. After the dissolution of his regiment due to the Versailles restrictions, he participated in paramilitary groups like the Freikorps and contributed to the war for Estonian independence. After serving in various capacities, Hermann Priess returned to the army in 1920 and was discharged in 1931. His military career continued, and in October of 1944, he assumed command of the 1st SS Panzer Corps. During the Battle of the Bulge in the failed Ardennen offensive, he led this formation as part of the 6th Panzer Army. The objective of the offensive was to split the Allied lines and create conditions to force peace negotiations with the Western Allies. In May of 1945, Priess surrendered to American forces. He began working for the Historical Division of the United States Army at Camp King. Between May and July of 1946, he became one of the 73 defendants in the Malmedy massacre trial held at the Dachau internment camp. On the 16th of July, Priess was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In October of 1954, he was released before completing his full sentence at Landsberg prison. Priess died in 1985. Heinz Lammerding, the impassive Gruppenführer of the SS. Heinz Lammerding, with university studies in civil engineering between 1923 and 1928, began his career as a technical manager and head of the urban planning department in Dortmund until 1933, obtaining his degree in civil engineering in 1932. His involvement in National Socialism began in 1931, becoming a member of the SA and later in the SA regiment in Paderborn. In 1934, he assumed leadership roles in the SA engineering department, but the purge of SA leaders in 1934 significantly reduced his influence. Lammerding joined the SS in 1935 and then the Verfügungstruppe, being paid as Obersturmführer in the Assault Engineers Battalion. He was promoted to Hauptsturmführer in 1937 and continued his training at the Brunswick Officers' School. In 1939, he was appointed SS Sturmbannführer and was entrusted with the training and control of the Engineers Battalion of the Panzer Division Totenkopf. In the spring of 1944, Heinrich Lammerding was awarded the Knight's Cross for his outstanding participation in the Russian campaign. Through a special distinction from Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, Lammerding was promoted to Brigadeführer und Generalmajor der Waffen-SS. Additionally, he was tasked with reconstituting the Das Reich Division in southern France. In early summer of 1944, Lammerding led the Das Reich Division during the intense Battle of Normandy. However, he was wounded in July and evacuated during the clashes in Saint-Denis in the Saint-Denis-Perriers sector, specifically in a place known as La Bournoyère. Despite the injuries, Lammerding regained command in the autumn of 1944 and played an active role in the Battle of the Bulge. In early 1945, Heinrich Himmler appointed him as Chief of Staff of the army group he led on the Vistula. In April of 1945, for less than a month, Lammerding commanded the last Waffen-SS division, the Grenadier Division Nibelungen, which was partly composed of cadets and instructors from the Bad Tölz Cadet School. In 1953, Lammerding was tried for war crimes in the Bordeaux court for his involvement in the Tulle and Oradour-sur-Glane massacres that occurred on the 9th and 10th of June of 1944. Although he was sentenced to death in absentia, West Germany chose not to extradite him. Subsequently, at the request of the French, the British were ordered to arrest him. Lammerding left Düsseldorf, where he lived openly, taking refuge in Schleswig-Holstein as the military occupation of Germany came to an end. After his retirement, Lammerding founded and ran a construction and public works company in Düsseldorf until his retirement. He died in 1971 from widespread cancer. His funeral attracted several hundred former National Socialist officers, including Otto Weidinger. Max Simon, the relentless Gruppenführer of the Waffen-SS. Max Simon was born in Breslau and joined the army in 1917, serving in the 11th Division in Macedonia and the Western Front during the First World War. He was awarded the Iron Cross Second Class. After the war, he joined the Freikorps in Silesia and fought against Polish forces. His unit was later integrated into the Reichswehr as the 16th Cavalry Regiment, and Simon was promoted to Unterfeldwebel. In May of 1933, he joined the SS and the National Socialist Party, being assigned to the 47th SS Standarte in Gera. In November of 1934, he was promoted to Untersturmführer. In 1935, he was ordered to form a new unit, the 1st Totenkopf Standarte Oberbayern, and was promoted to Standartenführer. In 1934, he was appointed commander of the Sachsenburg concentration camp. He participated in events such as the Anschluss of Austria, the occupation of Bohemia and Moravia, and the occupation of the Sudetenland in 1938. Brettheim, a locality in the Schwäbisch Hall district of Baden-Württemberg, witnessed a tragic episode under Max Simon's command. On the 10th of April of 1945, Simon ordered the execution of Friedrich Hanselmann, Leonhard Gackstatter, and Leonhard Wolfmeyer for undermining military morale, Wehrkraftzersetzung. Hanselmann, a farmer, had taken weapons from Hitler youth children and thrown them into a local pond. The children reported to Officer Sturmbannführer Gottschalk, who arrested Hanselmann and sentenced him to death. Mayor Gackstatter and teacher Wolfmeyer refused to confirm the sentence and were also arrested and sentenced to death. The three men were hanged and left at the cemetery entrance for 4 days by Simon's order. On the 17th of April of 1945, American tanks approached the village. Despite the presence of American forces, the SS, under Simon's direction, declared Brettheim as the cornerstone of German defense, preventing the raising of white flags. As a result, the Americans opened fire, turning the village into a burning inferno and claiming the lives of 17 civilians. On the 1st of May of 1945, the corps to which Simon belonged surrendered to American forces. After the Second World War, Max Simon faced trials for his involvement in the Marzabotto massacre and was sentenced to death by a British court. However, this sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, and Simon was released from prison in 1954. In West Germany, Simon was tried 3 times for the murders in Brettheim and other crimes. To the surprise and dismay of the German public, he was acquitted in all cases. His death in 1961 generated controversy, as the organization of former Waffen-SS members, HYAG, attempted to publish a laudatory obituary for him in the German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine. However, the newspaper rejected the publication of the obituary, causing HYAG's indignation. Helmuth Becker, the infamous brigade Führer of the Waffen-SS. Born in 1902, Helmuth Becker began his military career by joining the army in 1920, where he reached the rank of Master Sergeant before retiring in 1932. In 1933, he joined the SS and coincided with figures such as Wilhelm Bittrich and Hermann Priess. His trajectory continued in the SS Totenkopf Standard Oberbayern, based at the Übungslager Dachau, which later integrated into the SS Totenkopf division. On the 9th of November of 1940, he was promoted to Obersturmbannführer and appointed commander of the Totenkopf Regiment. From 1942 to 1944, he held the rank of Standartenführer and actively participated with the Totenkopf division. In early 1944, his path led him to the Führungshauptamt, and in March, he took leadership of the 36th SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment in the Reichsführer division in Italy. His ascent continued, being promoted to Oberführer on the 21st of June and assuming command of the 3rd Totenkopf division in July. By October of 1944, he reached the rank of Brigade Führer. In November of 1947, Helmut Becker faced trial before a Soviet military tribunal in Poltava, being sentenced to 25 years of imprisonment and forced labor for war crimes. His behavior during his sentence, marked by attempts to manufacture explosives, led to a new trial. Considered the personification of the brutal Landsknechts that comprised the high-ranking officers of the Waffen-SS, he was once again condemned and executed in February of 1953. Skull Guards, the concentration camp system in the Dark Era. Their name, which means skull units, refers to the distinctive emblem of the skull and crossbones that members wore on their uniforms. These units played a crucial role in the concentration camp system, being responsible for security, administration, and, in many cases, brutality within these camps. The origin of the Totenkopfverbände dates back to the 1930s when Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS and the German police, conceived the idea of forming special units for the administration and security of concentration camps. In 1933, Theodor Eicke, appointed by Himmler as inspector of concentration camps, became the founding leader of these units. Under his direction, the SS Totenkopfverbände adopted the distinctive skull and crossbones emblem, which soon became a symbol feared by prisoners and witnesses alike. In their early years, The Totenkopf focused primarily on the internal administration and security of concentration camps. The Dachau concentration camp, established in 1933, was one of the first and served as a model for the expansion of this system. The Auschwitz concentration camp, administered by the SS Totenkopf, became a symbol of brutality and genocide. Here, the National Socialist death machinery reached its peak with the implementation of gas chambers and crematoria to carry out the Holocaust. As the war progressed, the SS Totenkopf continued their participation on the front lines, and many of their members were involved in the atrocities of the mobile extermination units, the Einsatzgruppen. The brutality of these units manifested in the massacre of entire communities, especially on the Eastern Front. Skull Guards, the SS Totenkopf in Dachau. After the Führer assumed the position of Chancellor of the German Reich on the 30th of January of 1933, the National Socialists quickly established a dictatorship in the German Reich through measures of terror. The persecution and elimination of political opposition played a central role in this process, leading to the opening of concentration camps for the mass detention of political opponents throughout the Reich, such as the Dachau concentration camp. On the 22nd of March of 1933, the first transports of prisoners arrived at the camp, which was established on the grounds of a former gunpowder and munitions factory. In 1933, the camp commander Theodor Eicke implemented regulations that included brutal penal rules for prisoners and regulatory provisions for the camp SS. These regulations institutionalized the SS's domination over the prisoners, characterized by arbitrariness and terror. In 1934, the execution of several SA officials by the SS took place, including 20 in the Dachau concentration camp. The role of the SS in this massacre contributed to its rise in the hierarchy. SS units took control of other concentration camps that were previously under SA supervision. Theodor Eicke, now appointed as Inspector of Concentration Camps, extended the Dachau model, conceived by him, to all other concentration camps. In 1935, the Führer decided to implement the concentration camp system as a political tool of terror, paving the way for a permanent state of exception and the arbitrary control of the Gestapo and the SS under Heinrich Himmler's direction. Except for the Dachau concentration camp, all previous concentration camps were closed, leading to the creation of larger new penitentiary centers. In addition to regime opponents, the persecution extended to people for racist, ideological, and social hygiene reasons. This included sexual and ethnic minorities, such as homosexuals, Sinti, and Roma. People who committed repeated offenses or had a lifestyle considered inappropriate were also detained, labeled as criminals and asocial, and imprisoned in concentration camps. In 1937, the expansion of the SS camp and the construction of a new prisoner camp with a capacity for 6,000 prisoners began. These prisoners carried out construction tasks under extreme physical conditions. The Decree on Preventive Crime Fighting by the Police of 1937 systematized the procedure against people considered asocial and professional criminals. This regulation laid the foundation for mass detentions that occurred the following year in the so-called Reich Work Shy operation. After the occupation of Austria and the Sudetenland, thousands of political prisoners from the Roma and Sinti ethnic groups, as well as Jews from the occupied areas, were deported to the Dachau concentration camp. During the anti-Semitic pogroms of November of 1938, about 11,000 Jewish men were admitted to the Dachau concentration camp. The SS mistreated and extorted them to force them to leave their property and emigrate. On the 1st of September of 1939, the Second World War began with the German army's attack on Poland. At the end of September, the SS temporarily evacuated the Dachau prisoner camp to train the SS Totenkopf division on that ground. Until the spring of 1940, more than 5,000 prisoners were transferred to the Flossenbürg, Mauthausen and Buchenwald concentration camps, where their captivity conditions dramatically worsened. From 1940 onwards, more and more prisoners from areas occupied by the National Socialist Army were admitted to the Dachau concentration camp. The number of prisoners increased to around 10,000 prisoners in the summer of 1940. At the beginning of the war, living conditions drastically worsened for the concentration camp prisoners. The deadly working conditions, insufficient maintenance, and lack of hygiene in the camps led to a huge increase in the mortality rate. After the invasion of the Soviet Union in June of 1941, the Dachau concentration camp became an execution site for Soviet prisoners of war. Members of the Red Army, identified by the Gestapo as intellectuals, Jews or communist officials, were shot by the concentration camp SS. Initially, the mass executions took place in the bunker yard and were later moved to the Hebertshausen shooting range. There, between 1941 and 1942, the Schutzstaffel murdered more than 4,000 Soviet prisoners of war. As the defeat of the Wehrmacht loomed in 1944, the Red Army and the Western Allies approached the Reich's borders. The SS continuously evacuated concentration camps near the front through evacuation transports to the main Dachau camp. This camp was overcrowded, and the catastrophic conditions led to a typhus epidemic. In the sub-camps, prisoners suffered deadly conditions. Of the approximately 40,000 people who died between 1933 and 1945, one-third lost their lives in the last 6 months of the war.